So how do you stay motivated when you're not seeing results? I'm going to share my process with you in this video. And I think if you're a little bit stuck in your business, in your journey, this will make a huge difference for you. Welcome back to another episode of #Winning. Uriel King here. And one of the most common things you will experience as a business owner is running into walls, like metaphorically speaking. You're going to run into situations where things just aren't working out, seemingly. And what do you do? How do you stay on track? How do you stay the course? That's what I want to share with you here because it's really, really important. Nothing is more normal or sadly uninspiring than people who gave up on their dreams. And I don't want that to be you. So let's dive into this. First thing I want to share with you is a bit of a mindset reframe. The very thought of things not working out, like when you're not seeing results, that's the first mindset I would encourage you to consider reshifting. Here's what I say. It's either working on you or it's working for you. If it's not working for you, then it's working on you until you get to the point where you are the type of person by which the work will work for you. You may want to rewind that and listen to that again. When things are not working out, that statement doesn't make a lot of sense in the context of what I just said, because things are always working out for you. It just may not be in the way that you were hoping for. But when you start to reframe and shift how you see the situation, you'll understand that everything is always working out for you. It's working on you or it's working for you. So for instance, in the context of the business that we help our clients run, let's say that their ads are not producing great results. You can say, well, it's not working. Well, that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, which I'm encouraging here, is that it is working. It's just working on you, not for you yet. So when we say working on you, what does that mean exactly? Well, you're getting some type of feedback that what you're doing isn't, it's not moving the needle in the way that you might want it to. And here's, for me, the reminder. Whenever I have a sense of frustration, or I'm working on something, and I'm like, man, like why is this not moving forward? Why is this result not happening? I can play that baby cry my victimhood game all I want, or I just remind myself, Yuri, you're just not that good yet. There's something you're missing. There's some information gap. There's something you're not aware of, or you keep forgetting. And when I take that perspective of I'm just not good enough in this particular area yet, I regain 100% ownership to make it better. In fact, this actually happened recently with our ads. So we spend a lot of money on our ads, 400,000-ish per month. And the last little while we, got into a bit of a funk, and I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, what am I missing? And obviously I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, well, here are the things that we're not doing very well. This. Okay, cool. So those are the things that we're not doing very well to the best of my knowledge, knowing what other people playing at a higher level might be doing. What if we just did the opposite? So for instance, as an example, I think our advertising process in terms of the creation of assets has been very disorganized. So by saying, okay, you're not good enough yet, what can I get better at? Okay, well, what if we just started off by better organizing our thinking and the framework by which we create assets, organize them, share them, and deploy them? Cool. So that's something we can do. And so now I go back from this feeling of like hopelessness and frustration to empowered and hopeful. Like, cool, I think if we implement this can move us in a better direction. So that's an example of how we can shift from when to I have control over this situation to a certain extent. Here's what I can do. So I wanted to start this by giving you that frame, that mindset shift, because I do think that is the most important thing, is understanding it's always working for you. Even when you don't think it is. It's working on you, even before it's working for you. Because you have to be the type of person you need to be in order to experience the results you want to experience. Remember, all business growth follows personal growth. And all the problems in your business are personal problems, meaning you, right? And those are going to change over time, and that's all good. And that's the beauty of this whole endeavor of running a business. So the second shift that I want to support you with here is understanding the difference between the process and the outcome. If you can get to a point where you're less focused on the outcome and more excited about the process, then you really don't ever have a challenge per se. So this kind of segues from what we just talked about, but I want to shift the focus here to the skill and the learning. So let's just use monetary examples. Okay. So when I was in my 20s, I had set a goal to be a millionaire by 30, and that didn't happen. And the part of the reason that it didn't happen is because I was so focused on the outcome and I wasn't as focused on the process. Now, I might have been focused on the process, but it wasn't the right process because I was trying to do a lot of this stuff by myself. So I was super busy, but I wasn't really moving the needle. And if you too are very, very busy and you're not moving the needle, then what it means is you're simply doing the wrong things, right? You're busy doing work, but it's not the work that's going to move the needle. And that's okay. Like, you're just doing the best you can with what you know. But remember, if you're not where you want to be, it's simply because you're not good enough yet. There's something you don't know. So if you can lean into coaching, mentoring, etc., to learn from someone who's been there, to say, hey, consider this. And you're like, oh man, I didn't even think about that. Then you can go to work on that, because there really is a skill gap. So if you focus on, okay, if I'm here and I want to make $1 million, instead of obsessing about the outcome, obsess about who you have to become skill-wise to get there, right? Could you get better at sales? Could you improve your messaging? Could you get better at speaking? Could you get better at having hard conversations? Could you be better at waking up early and being more consistent? There's all sorts of little micro skills that we can focus on that are process-oriented, that if we take care of these over time, the outcome will take care of itself. This is something I remind my team of quite a bit, especially on the sales front, where we might have had the outcome, like we got our clients enrolled, but if the process wasn't adhered to, we have to be very careful of that, because if we over-celebrate outcomes without adhering to the process, eventually we won't have those outcomes because the process wasn't followed. So I'm much more of a process guy, where I'm saying, like, don't worry about the outcome. If we do these things, the outcome will take care of itself. But if we randomly get the outcome without doing these things, like if we did this, but we skipped all that and did this, let's not get ahead of ourselves, because if we do that repeatedly, we're not going to have that outcome much more in the future. So really start to get excited about how you can build the skills, what skills you can build, so that you become a more resilient human, a more resilient entrepreneur, that you can bounce back from setbacks, that you can learn the different skills that you require to have as a successful business owner. So focusing more on the process over the outcome. The third thing to help you stay on track and motivated in the process of doing something great, even when on the surface it doesn't look like it's working, is to chunk down your goals. Is to say, okay, well, again, I'll just use the example of $1 million. How do you chunk that down to something that's relatable? So let's say you're currently at 10K per month, and let's just call that 100,000 a year. You want to hit $1 million, but to go from 100K to $1 million, that's a 10X. That's a 10X multiple. That's big, right? That's big for a lot of people to wrap their head around. That's essentially going from 10,000 a month to 83,000 a month. Like, how on earth do you make that jump? So although you can have that North Star of $1 million, what are some smaller milestones you can set? So perhaps if you're at 10K, what's the next milestone? Well, if we said, okay, listen, let's go from 10 to 20. All right, cool. So how do we go from 10 to 20? And this is where the process becomes very useful, because if you can break down the process of how you got to 10, then a lot of times you can either double the process to get to 20. So that's why I love advertising, because if I know my numbers to get to 10, then I simply reverse engineer what the numbers need to be to get to 20. And then I look at, okay, where do things start to break? Like, if I'm a one-man show, then I know that I can't handle X number of clients beyond a certain point on the back end. So I know that if I'm a single human running a coaching business, coaching clients, high ticket, I can't take on 100 clients at the same time. So I know there's going to be a capacity ceiling, and for whatever, you charge and how you work with clients, every business will have a bit of a different ceiling. So if I know that my capacity, me as a solopreneur, is $35,000, then I can't even make $1 million with the current model. So I'm going to have to step my way to that point where I'm at 10. Okay, cool. I know I can see what 20 looks like. I can see what 35 looks like, but I don't know what goes beyond that, because I can't do everything myself beyond 35K. That's okay, right? Don't worry about the peak of the mountain. Just know that you're headed there. Just focus on base camp 1, base camp 2. And then as you go through that journey, trust that new information will unfold. Because when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Isn't that cool how life works? It's like when you have clarity around the questions you're asking, the answers will surface. So don't worry too much about how to go from 10 to 100. Go from 10 to 20. Break these things down a little bit. And at the same time, I want to be clear that we're not like lowering our goals, right? I'm a huge fan of thinking big, stretch goals, really just like ridiculous stuff. However, in the short term, you have to be, okay, well, what can we actually accomplish based on the current bandwidth, resources, energy, etc. that I have, and set that as the next target. Because when you chunk things down, even if it's like the specific to-dos you can do on a daily basis, it becomes more manageable. One of the things that I have our clients do is we have a critical number sheet. And this critical number sheet, they get to track all of their data in their perfect client pipeline on a weekly basis. And so they can see exactly cost per click, cost per lead, cost per call booked, all these different metrics. We have a second tab, which is called the game plan. And the game plan literally pulls information from that first tab into, let's play what the future could look like. So let's say I'm at 10K and I wanted to make 25K per month. I will based on that data, it pulls right into the second tab to say, cool. So if you want to make 25,000 per month, based on your current data, you would need 4 calls booked per day at a 75% show up rate. You're going to have this many conducted at a 30% close rate. This many people will enroll. And this is the ad spend required to get there. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I only have to add $10 per day in ad spend. Boom, let's go. So it's less nebulous and it's much more concrete. So anytime you feel a bit overwhelmed or unclear about the next steps, just chunk things down to the micro level. Another thing that I have our clients do, we have a really cool planner called the Focus Planner. I don't have a copy on me right now, but one of the first exercises in that planner is what I call your best life number. So you identify how much money after tax you need to be making, or even if you're running expenses for your business, how much you want to be making in the business, so that everything you want in life becomes true. So we write down everything you want, right? Your house, car, travel, everything you can possibly think of, private chef, it doesn't matter. And you, to the best of your ability, you map out what those will cost on the grand scheme. And then you break them down by month. And then you're like, whoa, okay, so this is how much money I need to live my dream life. And every single time we do this activity in a workshop style with our clients, what they end up sharing with me is, I didn't realize how tangible and close these future dreams were. They were no longer these nebulous, huge, unrealistic goals. They were, I just need to make $1,300 per day. And I know exactly how I can do that. And so try to chunk down your goals into the micro so that they're much more bite-sized. And when they're tangible, they're more actionable. The fourth way to stay motivated when you are stuck, when you're not seeing the results you want, is to focus on why you started in the first place. I don't know who said this quote, but it's when you feel like giving up or when you feel like quitting, remember why you started. And I was actually just sharing this with a client just before I started recording this, is the most important thing, I believe, to succeed in business is to stay in business. Because if you are not in business, then you can't be in business and therefore you can't succeed in business. So if you want to be around for 10, 20, 50, 100 years, the most important thing to think about is just keep staying in business. Just keep running the race, keep playing the game. How do you do that? Well, you got to focus on the why. You have to focus on the big reason why you're doing this. And that why can change and morph and evolve over time. So initially, when you're starting, it might just be man, I just got to cover the bills. Fuck, I got to get my head above water. And that you can't even think about changing the world. You're just I need to survive, right? Think of this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is exactly mapped out to the entrepreneurial journey. When we are starting off in business, all that matters is safety and shelter. That's it. It's literally survival. We're not thinking about self-actualization when we're barely making any money. We're thinking about, I just got to cover the bills. I have to put food on the table, basic necessities. And that's okay to start there because a lot of times some of the best innovation comes from desperation. And it's actually I'm a huge fan of living broke. I'm a huge fan of living in situations that are uncomfortable. Even if you make a lot of money in your business, I pull a lot of cash out of our company so that our company doesn't sit there bloated because it's just too easy to rest on your laurels. So I only personally take out whatever money I need to cover my expenses. We take cash out of the business. I, move it elsewhere. I want to make sure that we stay scrappy. I want to make sure we stay innovative because it's very easy to get bored, especially as you succeed in business and you lose that fire. So it's a really good thing to have, if you're in that situation right now, to feel that. I'm not saying you necessarily want to feel that for the rest of your life, but it can be very powerful because one of the biggest challenges that I've recognized, I dealt with this a number of years ago, and I see a lot of other entrepreneurs who achieve success, 7, 8 figures, is they get bored out of their mind, is they achieve everything they want. They have all the money they could possibly spend, and they have no reason to get out of bed in the morning. And this is what I talk about evolving your why. Is initially your why might just be to put food on the table. And you might say it's about impacting people, but let's be honest, like you just want to cover the bills. Yeah, you want to help people for sure, but let's not play the fairy tale game while we're basically like not even making any money. So we all want to impact people, right? That's obvious. But that's going to change over time, right? You might go through a stage of their journey where, for instance, one of our clients wanted to buy her dream home in Florida. So for her, that was a big driving force. That in the moment, that was her why. Made that happen. Amazing. Now what's the next why? Now there's always this bigger, like there's this bigger why. Like for instance, with Healthpreneur, our why is to fundamentally disrupt a broken sick care system. We want to help 1 billion people by empowering them to live a better quality of life. And the way we're going to do that is by helping health professionals build better businesses, specifically online, to get their message in front of more people so that they can empower their clients and collectively we all win. We want to build a brand that extends beyond my lifetime. I want Healthpreneur to be around in 100, 200 years from now. But there are moments in my journey where that's not the driving force. There are moments in my journey where it's like, hey, I want to buy this house. We're going to make that happen. But the only way we get there is by focusing on helping people, right? It's not at their expense. So whenever you're in those moments of doubt, whenever you're thinking like, man, I'm going to just throw in the towel, you have to connect back to as many reasons why as you possibly can. It's never just about one thing. And if you haven't done this already, I would actually recommend you write down, why is it a must for you to succeed? And write down as much as you can possibly think of. And it's going to start off with some stuff that might be top of mind and maybe self-centered. And that's cool. You want a cool house. You want to travel more, whatever it is, right? You want to spend more time with your family. But as you go deeper, you're going to keep like the more reasons why you have, the more fuel you will have. Jim Rohn famously said, reasons come first. You have to have reasons for why you're doing what you're doing. If you don't, it's too easy to stop. And the final thing that I'll mention, number 5 here, in terms of staying motivated when the results are not quite there, is really leaning into the community. Now, if you don't have a community of like-minded health entrepreneurs or coaches, you got to get in one. It's probably like, if you're like gun to my head, Jerry, what's the one thing you would share right now with anyone if this were your last word? And it would be this: get around people who are already where you want to be and live in that environment as much as possible. When I say live, I mean physically live if you can, but at least virtually. Be in a community of other people who are at where you want to be. Stop hanging around people from high school who are like living in the past. Don't take advice from, don't take business advice or life advice from your parents if they're not closer to your goals. Just because they're closer to you doesn't mean you have to take their advice. So when you get around other people who are already where you want to be, you're forced, like through like osmosis, you're pulled in that direction. If you are one unhealthy, overweight person in a group of 5 very fit individuals, guess what you're going to become? You're going to become fit if you want to be in that community. Guess what they're not going to become? They're not going to become overweight and fat, right? There's 5 of them, 1 of you. So the power of your peer group is very, very important. We are social beings. We will do anything subconsciously to not be ostracized from the tribe. And if you put yourself in an environment with other people who are on the same wavelength, a little bit further ahead or much further ahead from you, it will inspire you. They will give you wisdom and advice and reminders and motivation and inspiration and a helping hand. Hey man, I understand what you're going through. I was there a couple months ago. I can just keep going. It's going to be okay. When you hear that from your peers, it's very different than if you hear it from a coach. Like if I tell you that, you're like, yeah, okay, Yuri, whatever. But if you hear that from dozens or hundreds of your peers, that's a very different story. So get in a community of like-minded people. Get in a community of people who are where you want to be, who are on that track. Do not aim to be the smartest person in the room. It's okay if you're the smallest fish in a bigger pond, metaphorically speaking, in the context of a community of successful individuals, because you will grow to meet that. If you're the biggest fish in a small pond, if you're the smartest kid in class, you're already at the top of the food chain. You're not going to grow that much. And so those are 5 things that I think will really make a huge impact. At least they have for me and a lot of the people that I've worked with, where if you're lacking a little bit of motivation, you're feeling a little bit down and out because the results might not yet be there, Apply them today and watch what happens and start to really embody these. It's not just going to be like a micro once and done type of thing. This is just how you have to show up on a daily basis, because the entrepreneurial journey, as you know, is a friggin' emotional roller coaster. And the best thing you can hope for is not to necessarily avoid this roller coaster, but it's just to ride it with a lot more neutrality. And that's something you can do with practice and mindfulness as you go through this process. So if you've enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments below which one of the 5 of these recommendations hits home the most for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And while you're here, remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss any other videos we have coming your way to help you build a thriving coaching business that transforms more lives. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one. If you are the type of person who tends to put yourself behind others, if you have people-pleasing tendencies, if you really care what other people think of you, I want to share a really important lesson with you today that I think will give you a tremendous amount more peace, more happiness, and less frustration.